And we're back for round 3. Once again, I'm Brad, and joining me is
Kagan Joyner. So we're getting ready for round 3 here on the FNM.
which is going to be having Dane on the left, playing the mono green devotion deck that we saw last round, and Jaws on the right, who's playing his Esper Afara midrange.
That mid-rangey aggro deck. Yeah, I know that, as we saw last week, both Jaws and his brother like to come down and play. And typically Jaws' brother will play that deck, but Jaws' brother is actually not here tonight. That's giving Jaws the opportunity to play the deck himself a little more.
And I actually lost to Jaws in round 1 of this tournament. I thought I was going to be able to play the long haul, but one of our commentators didn't show up, and that's why I'm here. And what I can say about Jaws' deck is it has this nasty habit of playing a whole bunch of creatures, and then when your opponent taps out for a Supreme Verdict, slamming an Obsidat and saying, "Oops, I win."
Exactly, yeah.
Turns out Obsidat, if he resolves, he's really good. Don't know how many of those he's playing in the main board, but playing them alongside Afara.
I know I saw at least 2 in the match that you played against. So a minimum of 2.
So he's another awkward combination between hyper aggro deck and more controlling mid-range deck. So when he draws the half of his deck that's trying to do one plan, it works great. When he's trying to draw the half that does the other plan, it works great. When he draws a mix, it's really, really fun.
Yeah, and he has the Afaras in there to give him, a little more card advantage off of those really cheap guys as he gets into the mid game. Because he does, play Soldier of the Pantheon and a lot of very aggressive creatures. So yeah, he can, a lot of games just run through a lot of decks that aren't prepared for that early game.
And judging by what Dane did last round, it seems like he's really going to want to be drawing Detention Spheres, which I know he plays, and Doomblades or Ultimate Prices, which I have no idea how many he plays. Probably not very many in the main and several on the side. So it'll be interesting to see if he can handle what Dane brings out.
Exactly, and I'd say probably one of the most interesting decks that you'll see in Jaws' deck is Ashiok, which he uses more or less exclusively just to take your creatures away and play them for himself. He's not trying to deck you out, he just wants more creatures.
Absolutely. He uses his 1 and 2 drops to pretend to be aggressive so that he can take over the game with those weird mid-rangey 3 to 5 drops.
Yeah, and I know I was talking to Jaws a little bit, and one of the cards he mentioned that he added in was he had a couple of Read the Bones, just because he wanted to be able to filter and draw even more in that mid-game to really make sure that he has the cards for the right phase of the game at the right time.
That's what you gotta love about Jaws and the way he builds his decks, is he always builds his decks so that if the game goes long, he'll eventually win.
Yeah, even with his crazy aggro decks.
Even with his crazy aggro decks.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how these 2 decks pair up.
All right, let's start game 1, shall we?
Yeah, so coming into this, I would not... Yeah, the big thing that we saw is last round, Woody didn't have as much removal, especially main deck. And we know that Jaws has Detention Spheres, and I believe he also has... Azorius Charms as well, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
I haven't seen an Azorius Charm, but it could be there. Looks like Dane started with a Hero of Lane and Tower, which I just told Keegan turned out Dane didn't have in his deck, but there he is.
Or is that not the... Is that the Mystic?
That's not a Mystic.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was that alternate art Mystic.
It's not.
Okay.
There's a Clonian Tusker, so he's got 4 power and toughness in play. There's an Imposing Sovereign to try and answer it. So whatever Dane plays next will enter tapped.
And yeah, as we saw, there was no 1-drop coming out of Jaws this game either, which is typically, with these aggregate decks, you really want to set that pace, and there's so many good 1-drops in the format right now that missing that 1-drop loses a lot of your traction of getting that aggro playing going.
But I do think that Jaws is only playing Soldier of the Pantheon.
Okay, that might be true as well.
Since you're playing so many 4 and 5 drops, you need more of your cards to be good at every phase in the game.
Yeah, I believe you are correct on that. We see... it looks like the Hunter coming down, and he's going to be...
A 5/5.
A 5/5, but a tapped 5/5. Yeah,
Trades for the hero.
Yeah, it looks like they missed that, but they might catch that a little later here.
It also seems irrelevant.
Yeah, it's fairly irrelevant now.
Quite unlikely that Jaws attacks this turn.
Yeah, so he's...
It's probably going to be for a Detention Sphere.
Yep, yeah.
That's the nice thing about that. I love that.
Yeah, that you can see it's a much more even board where all Jaws is really worried about right now is a 3/3 and gives him a lot more room to catch up. And he's got a lot bigger creatures to catch up with as well. Yeah, because as we can see right now, Dane's looking through to make his decision here.
There's Nykthos.
Yep, so be opening them up for an explosion in a turn or two here.
And the Nylea. Nylea gives all of your creatures trample, and for 3 mana can give a creature you control +2/+2 until end of turn.
Yeah, so it can get a lot of damage through with your extra mana, as well as it's not that hard for it to just become a mana in his deck either. As you can see, he's 2 green mana symbols away. A little more now, though.
4 green mana symbols away.
Now, it's a much longer trail.
So we finally get to see what Dane does, how Dane fights a card advantage battle.
Yeah, exactly. Where he's not just being bigger and winning by that way. Yeah, and so one of the cards that I know that's going to be very important for Jaws here is going to be Blood Baron. Because that's, it gives him the life link, it gives him flying, it lets him race, and eventually, if he's winning the race enough, it's going to get big enough where it gets that little bonus for the extra life.
See, that's actually the only time the Blood Baron has flying.
Oh.
It's there's the Obsidat sending him to 11. So actually, while Blood Baron is amazing, it's one of my favorite cards in Standard. Against the mono green deck is not where it shines.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, I wasn't actually thinking about it. For some reason in my mind it had flying.
It should. It's a vampire.
Yeah.
All vampires should have flying.
Anytime I've played against it's just been the pro-white, pro-black's broken me, so it might as well have just had flying.
Absolutely. And he exiles it, so it'll be coming back every turn.
Yeah, and an end of turn Boon Satyr as well, just to pop in a little more pressure, and threaten to make that god an active guy as well.
And that's an active god.
With a Boon Satyr on a Boon Satyr.
So that 13 damage out of nowhere, that's fabulous.
Yeah, because your Jaws and you're passing that turn, you feel pretty safe. You feel almost in control, I'd even say.
So if you're Jaws there, do you ever consider not sending away the Obsidat? Probably not.
Yeah, you have to. It gives you reach. It gives you life gain. Like helps you stabilize so much.
And so what? Like if he doesn't blink it out and he blocks the Boon Satyr, he's not winning that game.
Exactly. Because it's just dying. And then he has the other Boon Satyr coming back in. So turns off the god for a turn maybe. But other than that, Nylea is so big and scary there. And even with just the Boon Satyr and Nylea's pumps, you have to have a big turn to get back in that game as well.
That's true. On the other hand, if you do make the trade, it has trample.
Yeah, it's trample as well.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, it's all types of bad things right there.
So he's definitely taking 9 going to 2?
Yeah, there's one of those no-win scenarios. It's going to be bad no matter what, it just could have been less bad.
And who knows how many aspects of the Hydras Dane was holding.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, again, the explosiveness that we see from that green deck to out of nowhere win.
Even through 2 detention spheres.
Yeah, and I don't know that much about Jaws' sideboard, but you have to believe that he's going to be shifting to a much more controlling side of the sideboard. I know he plays Ultimate Prices, which will be very valuable for him in this matchup.
Some Ifara decks have Supreme Verdict in their sideboard, and some don't. And I don't know where Jaws falls.
Yeah, I'm not too sure on that, but that's what I'm seeing is that if somebody just came into Cosmic with a whole bunch of Supreme Verdicts, I think we keep seeing, the mono black decks are running wild. We see the red-white decks, the black-white decks. There's so many aggro decks is that a Supreme Verdict stops a lot of those plans dead cold.
And I'm telling you, I played turn 4 Supreme Verdict against Jaws twice and died both games to an Obsidat, so...
Yeah, that is one of the things too, it's Supreme Verdict sounds good, but you gotta have the follow-up too.
If only had gotten paired against someone else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Jaws is a beast.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're seeing, 2 of our very interesting deck builders here at Cosmic, who I'd say more or less stay on the sort of plans where you see Jaws trying to get that constant value and constantly shaping the game to his own will. And you see Dane trying to go just big, wild, crazy things with cards that people are kind of letting fly under the radar.
Yeah, I've seen Reverend Hunter do amazing things in Limited,
exactly.
But to actually see it in Standard, this is pretty cool.
But we've seen that in so many formats where a archetype that you're going to see in Limited kind of works its way into Standard.
Packrat.
Exactly. Packrat was a card that I've heard people building decks suggest Packrat and get laughed out of the room, like way back in the day.
On the other hand, Owen Turtenwald once wrote an article about how in Limited a 39 Swamp 1 Packrat deck is a winning deck.
Exactly. I believe there was a talk of a Grand Prix that kind of brought that up where I think somebody had 2 in their pool. There's a discussion of do you just play exactly what you're talking about, like at a PTQ or a Grand Prix.
I think Team Sealed was the format there.
Okay, that-
And so it was going to be the junk third deck.
And I've played some junky third deck, so
totally.
I would gladly play 39 lands pack rat over a lot of the ones I've played.
I'm playing 5-color control with no mana fixing. There's not really any green in it. It's okay.
Exactly. Yeah, I think another example of those limited decks turning into standard decks was a while back during, I believe it was M13. Sam Black built a deck with Staff of Nim, Diabolic Revelations, Liliana of the Dark Realms, and it just looked like this pile of junk. People read the article, laughed it off, then he streamed with the deck and won 13 matches in a row.
Turns out Drastic Revelationing for Elixir of Immortality, Drastic Revelation, and any card is good.
Exactly. Yeah, Staff of Nim just cleans everything out, gets you those extra cards, cleans up the little guys, puts on a very slow clock, all those things that don't seem like they should work and concern. And that's where experimenting, I think, is so important. It's just because something doesn't look like it will work doesn't mean you shouldn't try it, just to see why it won't work.
If you have the hours, finding the limits of every format is absolutely worth doing. If you don't have the hours, do it on Legacy because it won't reset every 3 months.
Exactly. Yeah, so we're going to be going into Game 2 here and be able to see what adjustments Jasdeep has made. If he's going to try to be a little more aggressive to try to stop Dane from being able to stabilize, or if he's going to go a little more controlling and try to just 1-for-1 and then let his little guys sneak through.
If you're Jaws, do you keep Soldier of the Pantheon in?
That is an interesting question. It's about what the cards you have is. If you have a card that says I'd rather be in here than Soldier, absolutely. If you don't have a card that's better than Soldier, I think you can get some damage in. And with your Imposing Sovereigns, you can have those really aggressive draws where your opponent just can't do anything about your aggression. Yeah, so, it's definitely, I think, sideboard relevant to whether or not you'd be doing that.
Alright, Jaws on the right. He'll be going first this game.
Yeah, and so...
Starts at 18 life.
Yeah, we see that Soldier, so we know the answer to that question. And then it's answered by the Mystic, by Dane. So, again, we'll be threatening that Hunter as well.
Offers the trade. I assume Dane's going to go to 18 life here.
Yep. Yeah, because Dane's not very interactive. He just wants to make his big creatures and doesn't really care what you're doing in the meantime.
And there's the Daring Skyjack.
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of pressure here now from Jasdeep. And so, Dane's considering his options here. And Dane is a player who definitely thinks through his decisions.
He passes the turn representing Boon Satyr.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, all Boon Satyr will do is trade with either of Joss's creatures.
And you'd gladly trade either guy for a Boon Satyr. So it's, I think, more of the end-of-turn aggression sort of thing, so kind of a pseudo-haste. Yeah, we see that the elf is actually willing to trade here with the Skyjet.
So probably declare it as a blocker, flash in the Satyr, and start the race?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if what Jasdeep is thinking here. It might be a God's Willing that came out of the board.
And Jaws has...
I think I see a Doomblade in his hand as well.
Yeah, there's a Doomblade and a Tension Sphere in there.
Okay. So, this is interesting are you willing to trade off your guys, Doomblade Satyr, and just be up Soldier of Pantheon on an empty board? Or do you save that for something a little more intimidating, like one of those hunters that's going to be, a 7/7 and 8/8?
Jaws plays the Mutavault and says, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think, he's just looking here to react to a bit. Oh. No, decided to, just wait to see if he'd play something pre-combat, try to get his devotion up a little bit. I don't think Jaws knew about the aspect of Hydra, because that is one of those places where you can bait them into playing the aspect of Hydra and getting the 2-for-1 on that Doomblade as well.
Mm-hmm. Attacks for 2, or attacks for 4, plays the Scribe.
Yeah, so this is a much more favorable game for Jaws. We're seeing he's going more into controlling the board, and he has that detention sphere in hand as well. So, whatever big creature this is, or
whatever big enchantment this is.
Exactly, creature at some point. But so I think even after how explosive that last game ended here, I think you still wait on that detention sphere and wait for there to be a real threat, or even just the threat of Nylea turning into a person.
So we haven't seen any big things coming out of Dane's deck yet. We haven't seen an Arbo-Colossus, and we haven't seen a Pelucranos. So not sure what it is he can play that's going to get him to stabilize.
Yeah, that is true. But, I mean, if we look at it without the disruption, Dane's draw is pretty nutso.
Elvish Mystic.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is when you get disrupted, those plays that feed into each other and build off of each other don't work as well because you don't have that big devotion build. Yeah, and so that's where this disruption is so useful. And so, yeah, we see Mystic just blocking the Mutavault for little chumps.
It's not a chump. Nylea's going to pump it
Oh.
up to a 3/3, so it just eats the Mutavault.
Oh, thank you. And the realization, as I had missed it, as Jaws had as well, is this is probably a good time to detention sphere that thing with the impact it gets to have on even that small of a creature.
Oh, Nylea does stuff?
Exactly.
Okay. That's a Rogue's Passage. You can pay 4 mana and tap that to make target creature you control unblockable.
That's an interesting one. Oh, yeah, the land. Yeah, and then we're seeing
A Hero of Lena Tower.
and the Hunter coming down for the, I believe it's a 3 devotion. Yep.
Makes it a 4/4.
Yeah, so it's a 4/4.
Those big monocolored creatures make Soldier of the Pantheon look a little unimpressive.
It is true, but yeah, I think it just comes down to I don't think Jaws has something in his sideboard that he can take out for it.
Absolutely, and the Soldier got 6 damage in. That's
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely what you want on any card.
That's well worth your 1 white man investment.
Absolutely. Jaws cried and kept it on top. So it's probably either an Obsidat or a Supreme Verdict, if I had to guess.
Yeah, so yeah, with your opponent at 8, you're feeling that you have them on the edge. So if it's on top, it's either pushing you over the edge or you see he's in behind on board now. So yeah, wait for him to stabilize. So we see the Hunter and the Mystic coming in.
He's serving for 5. Jaws will take it.
Yeah, so he goes down to 12, and we see the Witch Hunter.
Witch Stalker.
Witch Stalker, thank you. Yeah, Witch Hunter is a white creature from the dark, I believe. Very obscure.
Witch Stalker is 3/3 with hexproof. If your opponent casts a blue or black spell on your turn, it gets a 1/1 counter.
Yeah, so I don't think it's as effective against Jasdeep, but I mean, just having the hexproof and the big creature.
In the monocolored.
Exactly. And again, it's a 3/3 for 3, which is, even though we're seeing 3/3s for 2, it's still very powerful, and its abilities are very
Or
relevant.
7/7s for 3.
I mean, power creep's a thing.
Power creep's a thing.
Sometimes it's a little more obvious than other times.
Reverent Hunter is a creep.
Exactly. Yeah, so we see Dane. Yeah, that's the thing with. So we're seeing the combat phase coming in,
Declare Soldier as a blocker on the hero.
and Doomblade on the Hunter.
So that's 4 damage that's coming through to Jaws.
Yeah,
Jaws will go
and-
to 8, Dane's at 8.
There should be a trigger on that Witch Stalker as well that looks like is being missed.
There should be. You are correct. I've definitely missed those triggers on
Yeah.
Witch Stalker before.
Yeah, and we've seen even at the higher levels that these triggers very similar to these get missed. What's the blue-green or the green-white?
The green-white Voice of Resurgence?
Yeah, Voice of Resurgence I think is the primest example of when we see those triggers being missed on even the highest of levels. But yeah, Polychronos shutting down this game.
And Jaws draws a card and reveals some lands in his hand and says, nope, didn't get there.
Yeah, Polychronos and a lot of mana against an aggro deck is not a happy pairing at all.
So there you go, Dane with his mono green monstrosity going 3-0. I'm not sure if he'll be able to draw into his top 8 or not.
So, we misspoke actually. It's actually not 5 rounds tonight, it's actually 4 rounds top 8.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, Dane can just draw next round, straight into top 8.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
and
we
that-
absolutely will not be seeing him in the next feature match.
Yeah, and so that will put Jaws into a win and in scenario.
Okay.
Yeah, and even on the loss, he has, some tiebreaker opportunities to get in, even at 2-2, probably with the top 8 in 4 rounds.
And I haven't seen an announcement, but I believe we're still on the guaranteed prize pool structure.
Yeah, I believe we are as well. So that's the 100 for first place, 50 for second, and then 15 and 4 packs for top 4.
Yeah, who knows after that?
Yeah, yeah, and then I think it's some packs or something for top 8. I don't know. Whenever you get to top 8 and don't top 4, your prize is typically shame. But typically you get some packs or something to help heal that a little bit. Yeah, and by the way, something we didn't talk about is, the structure of entering the tournament as well. This is a tournament that's open to anybody who has a standard deck. And it's $650 to enter, and as we're saying, there's a very steep guarantee at the top as well for those prizes.
And I'm a huge advocate if you're a new Magic player and you're not sure if you're ready to come to FNM, just come and be prepared to see cards and decks that you can't handle. Lose to them and learn as much as you can every time.
And there are definitely some players who are here that aren't playing the net decks, aren't playing them. They're just here for fun, here learning. So there's opportunity to really both have some fun and learn the game and improve. And I mean, we all started at a point where we didn't really know how to be competitive. And yeah, like how I actually really evolved is here at Cosmic. I always call it Arena League, but I think they just refer to it as League now. Is, just doing a little sealed league where we have, I believe it's $15 at Cosmic right now, where you can come down. Is it 5 boosters?
It's the release pack for Born of the Gods. So it's 2 boosters of Born of the Gods, 3 boosters of Theros, and 1 seeded Born of the Gods booster in whichever color you choose when you enter.
Okay, perfect. And what you do is you come down, you build a little 40 card limited deck with that, and just pay people. If you win, you get a card out of the big box. And then at the end, there's a tournament and a bunch of prizes as well.
And every week, you add 1 more booster to your pool, so your decks keep changing and growing over the course of the month.
And that's a great way to start practicing those deck building skills as well, where you're working with a lot more limited pool, but it gives you a lot of options to think about and really be able to experiment with things that you wouldn't be doing if you're just at home and not competing against other people.
And since you're stuck with 1 deck for 3 weeks, you really get to try a bunch of different things with it and see what works. And it's, like you said, it's a great way to learn how to build a deck.
And again, FNM is a pretty casual place to play Magic, but yeah, when you get into, the league, everybody's there is having fun. This isn't cutthroat at all. It's a bunch of people playing, having fun, a lot of people learning. It's just a general good time, and it's a great entryway into learning how to play Magic on a more competitive level, or just playing for fun.
And it's a great way to get to know some of the people who are regulars at our store.
Oh yeah, we have a lot of great people here, and everybody's super supportive of people learning as well. Yeah, but as we saw in that match, we definitely saw Dane get a much bigger challenge from Jaws, and that second game was a very, very close game. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. You never know if we might see them again in the top 8 or farther up.
It seems very likely for Dane. I really hope that we see Jaws there.
Oh, yeah, and I believe that is a very likely scenario. But
so we're going to go down, and I think we're going to be back up around 9:05, 9:10, something like that.
All right, perfect. So until then, we're signing off. I'm Kagan.
I'm Brad.
All right, we'll see you soon.